Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Loadout, presented by the Daily Dot. That's capital T, capital D, capital D. Very important to remember every single bit of that. Damn it. Talking to you. I am joined today for one more night of esports news, discussion, debate, and diatribes by the unholy duo, the dynamic pairing, if you will, the wonderful Wakers. That's not, I don't know. Who gives a shit, honestly. First, Sam, Halo Fortress champion Lingle. Sam, you're looking very backgrounded today.
I am backgrounded. I got this spiffy background. It's weird and orange, you know.
Wow.
It's all amazing.
I thought you were just broadcasting from in front of the sun.
That's what Sam should do.
That's just my natural radiance.
His sunny disposition has created a background behind him, which has lent us this wonderful visual. Also joining us, as you may have noticed, is Ian Double John Barker. Ian, you are broadcasting from the ocean?
Correct.
How's your fishing trip
yin
going?
and yang thing going on in the broadcast.
Right. Have you caught anything good today?
The fever for esports.
Have you caught any catfish, perhaps? Any giant ones wearing top hats?
You know what? I think I heard about a couple, but alas, I have not seen them.
Catfish don't live in the ocean, Jared.
Yeah, but I'm asking if you caught one in the ocean.
From what I understand, they're still in the PBE ocean.
But they're not actually in an ocean. So okay, anyway, yeah, that's good. So I'm glad we covered that. I'm glad we have this established. The sun, the ocean, and the moon and the stars come together here for the Loadout, presented by the Daily Dot, with Ian and Sam, and myself, your loyal host, Jared Wynn. Let's get right into things. Now, Sam, we had some news come across the news wire yesterday. You may have seen this. It was kind of a big deal. Kind of. I'm talking to Sam. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it was kind of a big deal. Wild Turtle, he of Team Solo Mid AD carry fame. I have called him out 2 weeks running, actually, on being no longer a top half of the table worthy ADC. And what do you know? Reginald listens to my wisdom and goes forth, and after I implored him to do so, finds a potential replacement in Keith McBreath. Now, I say replacement, really, I don't think Keith's ever going to play a game. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Your reaction to Wild Turtles having a substitute player brought in for him, it was a surprise to you, and I guess your initial thoughts on what this might affect with the team.
I mean, I'm not really surprised that they're looking at, potentially replacing Wild Turtle. I don't think anyone really is that surprised because, he hasn't played well for a while. I mean, even in past seasons, the LCS, where he's, had a lot of great games and a lot of great performances, he's still kind of, always had a bit of shakiness to his play, sometimes out of position and stuff. He makes up for it with his mechanics, but, like at MSI, against world-class players, you can't make up for that with your mechanics. You have the mechanics and the positioning. And then this season, the LCS, it's showing even worse. Now he's not even putting up, like, good stats in the team fights or anything like that, or doing, what he is usually able to do or has been able to do in the past seasons. He's doing even worse. So, I mean, it's obviously becoming a problem. And, like Reginald said, this was something that they discussed with him at MSI, right? He said that they talked to Dyrus and Wild Turtle, sat them down, and asked them about their performance, said that they need to improve or they're going to have to make changes, and they said that Dyrus improved, but Wild Turtle did not. So, I mean, this is a serious problem for the team if they want to actually, win the World Championship. Obviously, they're still 6-2 in the LCS, and on pace probably to defend their title, but, they want to do better than that, so
yeah,
it's not really a surprise.
Dyrus has looked better. I think they also perhaps gave him a little bit more help in top lane. I mean, he hasn't been quite as abandoned. I don't feel that he was in prior weeks, maybe.
Possibly. I mean, you could say that's because he's doing a better job communicating, because that was one of the major problems that they identified, was that Dyrus didn't call for jungle help when he might need it, or when there was a problem, or, when there's a good opportunity to gank. So maybe he's, fixed that problem somewhat, and that's one reason why he's getting more help. Right.
In fact, we had a rare occasion of Riot actually giving us some insightful team communication where he joked before one of the games TSM played this weekend about how he would let them know when he was dying, kind of referencing his own inability to communicate and his own struggles there, that he would, communicate as soon as he was dead, at least. So I do think Dyrus has improved. A Wild Turtle has not, of course. His flash forward tactics are just, very Wild Turtleian, if you will.
I mean, it's kind of surprised. Like, if anything, he's gotten worse too, right?
Right.
Like, I don't know. It's kind of, I mean, that's definitely surprising. I think that's one of the more surprising things about this whole situation.
This has been his worst split, I think, thus far, just in terms of the look of his play, and probably statistically as well. He has not looked solid at all.
Statistically.
Yeah, so
it's not even close.
You consider that Dyrus and Wild Turtle were both given the same message, the same ultimatum, if you will, and Dyrus immediately improved and has played quite well, I think, this split. whereas Wild Turtle has actually gone down. I wonder if you think that maybe the pressure impacted him negatively, and if that's the case, could we see that further be the case with Keith McBreath coming in to threaten his position?
I mean, I think it could be. That could be one of the reasons why, he's not playing too well. It's really hard to judge, players' mentality. I can say whatever I want on this show, but I really have no, special insight into, how Wild Turtle feels about all of this. I mean, obviously, Keith McBreath as, the guy putting roster pressure kind of worked for Piglet somewhat with Team Liquid last season. I mean, Piglet's playing well this season. A lot of that's probably just because he had more time to adjust to being in America. Maybe Keith McBreath didn't have that much impact on him, but who knows? So, it could go either way with Wild Turtle, and I'm not sure TSM really knows what's going to happen at this point. And they're kind of said that they're going to wait and see, although the language from the announcement was a little wishy-washy both ways, saying that Wild Turtle's the starter, but that he was also, Reginald said it's the first time they've benched someone.
Yeah, that he was benched. Yeah.
So, who knows?
The starter, but also benched. So, how nice. What about Keith, though? I think a solid player, just got out of high school recently. He's now stints with Team Liquid and Team Solo Mid. I mean, I, again, don't see him playing a game for TSM. I think this is a tactic to kind of get Wild Turtle back on track, kind of a last-ditch effort to do so.
They said nothing special, and then they shipped him off to Team Liquid, Now
that
Team
is
Liquid
true.
owes them a favor, right? So they're getting Keith back.
That is true. I guess the potential, the difference is that, you're now weeks away. Well, I guess not weeks, but you're getting pretty close to Worlds, and TSM has designs on Worlds. It's easy to write that off because MSI was a struggle for them, but they won IEM, and they rolled over CJ Intis. They beat World Elite, who again are not a top Chinese team, but were playing on fire at IEM. They rolled over them in the final, made it a boring final, and actually beat Flash Wolves. So I think TSM has reason to believe if they get a good run going, they can have a shot at least making the top four. I don't think switching ADCs midway through the summer split is a good way to go about getting towards that top four placement. So perhaps it's just, again, I think a way to motivate Wild Turtle. If I think Wild Turtle doesn't play well at the split and then struggles even going into Worlds, you're definitely going to see an off-season change for TSM. That's really the time to make that kind of change for them.
I think that Reginald will be aggressive at this. I think if Wild Turtle doesn't show improvement quickly, I think we will see Keith. I'm not sure that Keith is necessarily the best player to fill the position on the team. It's really hard to tell. He had good statistical performance for Team Liquid last season, but in lane he wasn't really doing much. It's hard to say how much of that performance is him being great versus the team backing him up. But this season with the team backing him up, Wild Turtle can't do anything, and I mean that can't continue. If he plays like he does at Worlds, it's like they're throwing it away, basically. So they have to change. And the other question is, too, what Wild Turtle needs to improve on might not be the easiest thing, right? His positioning is something that you can think about and be like, okay, I need to fix this positioning, but then you're questioning your decision-making in-game. It's hard to know exactly how you do that. It's not something that's as easy to work on as maybe some other issues that could be with your game. It's more of a subtle thing.
Right.
So I'm not sure, he'll be able to really improve that aspect of his game, which might be what TSM's looking for.
I spoke to Richard about this yesterday, actually, and he said that Wild Turtle is still a mechanically sound player, but the issues that he has would basically require training from the ground up, and because Wild Turtle's been around so long, you have to erase part of his brain, more or less, in order to kind of reset this issue that he has, which I agree with. This is a hard thing to reprogram. It's kind of kind of reminiscent of Doublelift's issues, but I think Doublelift is more someone who just needs direction, whereas Wild Turtle takes his own direction, and it's usually flashing forward into the enemy front line and kind of overexposing himself. I saw a comment, I mentioned this yesterday as well, someone saying, Wild Turtle is just fine, all he has to do is not get caught out and be in bad positioning all the time.
Yeah.
Great. Aces, that's all the ADC has to do is not get caught out and have poor positioning, which is the most important thing for an ADC once you get out of the laning phase to do. So
that's what Keith did on Team Liquid. So,
that's what he did.
Well, can't you boil a lot of esports criticism down to that, where people say, "We just need better shot calling. Oh, we just need better top laner." It's
practice more champions.
Yeah, it's everybody acts like it's just you just flip a switch and things are better when it's
Yeah, I mean, these players are spending their entire lives basically, improving at the game. They realize they have some of these issues. Most of them do, at least, especially now with coaching staffs to tell them. So they're trying to work on it. It's not like they're doing nothing. Wild Turtle was specifically told that he needs to improve, or he's going to get shipped out at MSI, right? And so he's got to be working on it. I mean, if he's not, then there's even more reason for them to replace him. So, what can you do?
Well, I always go back to the idea that if they could fix it, don't you think they would have right by now? You know, if they knew the easy solution,
Wild Turtle, like, that way, but some people have an ego that makes it harder for them to address those issues. They don't believe that those criticisms are correct or something. You know, who knows? Mm-hmm. But I mean, in this case, you know, obviously they've sat Wild Turtle down, explicitly told him these things, and you know, I don't know if they gave him like a list of things like Team Liquid gave to Piglet last season, but I mean, it's, you know, he's just not getting it done right now for whatever reason.
Well, I mean, I think they should give him a list because Team Liquid has shown they know how to work the situation out. I mean, they could not have handled that much better than they did with Piglet. They managed to have a solid run last split while still integrating him better into the team, and now they look pretty solid. So I like the way Liquid handled things. Not quite exactly the same comparing it to TSM because obviously Wild Turtle's situation is much different than Piglet's coming into his first American split. Sure. But still, some potential parallels there. I wonder and I anticipate eagerly what's going to happen here. And CLG TSM this weekend, a big matchup, as if it wasn't big before. I think it's on Sunday, so CLG TSM, look out for that one to see what happens there. I'm sure Riot will remind you it's coming up.
I think if CLG actually manages to beat TSM during the regular season and retain first place, there will be a hole will rip in reality, and nebulas will converge. It's just, I don't know what it is about this team that they just cannot beat TSM. It's one of the biggest psychological blocks I think that exists in esports right now.
We'll find out this Sunday. Yeah.
I think CLG's psychological block in the playoffs is a little bigger.
Yeah, there are issues there beyond. Perhaps a psychological block was a mid laner though who had 18 pages of psychological block to get out of his chest. Now you have Cobalt instead, who can perhaps give them a different atmosphere on the team. We'll see. We'll find out again this Sunday. Free promotion. You're welcome, Riot. Ian. Another big event this weekend. You may have heard, you may have been vaguely aware about it. ESL came to Frankfurt, Germany, took over a soccer stadium, and then used like 1/8 of it.
Indeed, they did.
Very impressive of ESL to do that. Like I much prefer the old look where they had like the actual field covered in fans as opposed to like having one little like part of a donut. It's like someone bit a donut out, and that part that was bitten out is what they used for actual crowd.
Well, and to add insult to injury, it rained.
Yeah.
So, you know, you could make the argument that they would have been better off in an indoor stadium, and then weather's like, you guys really should have been in an indoor stadium.
Playing video games outside, like, rain.
Right, the outdoor thing, do you think that's like a good idea? You think it's cool to do that sometimes? I mean, I've been to like an event where it rained before, like, you know, World Cyber Games or whatever in like 2005 or something. It was like raining in Italy, like, you know, for a couple of days, and they had tents everywhere, and it was just nasty. But, I mean, I think it is, like, kind of cool to have that aspect in an event.
Yeah, I mean, you can't argue with the presentation, at least. I mean, yeah, seeing a mostly empty stadium isn't always great, but you can't doubt that the fact that their setup was really impressive. You know, it was certainly a step up from, you know, the typical, like, Riot Studio or something like that. That being said, we're talking about a small upgrade from a weekly league for a major Dota event, so, you know, make the comparisons you will.
We just did, I think.
Yeah, I believe we did, yeah.
But speaking to the actual games that were played, we saw some of the top teams come in from China, and once again, make a little headway. As Team Secret beat Evil Geniuses in the final, I know that you were heartbroken over that, Ian. I know it was a tough thing for you. EG winning the first game, and Team Secret coming back to win 3 in a row after that. We saw Keeper of the Light and Darkseer, I think, in games 3 and 4 consecutively for Team Secret, so we had some carryover from them that was allowed by EG. Your thoughts, Ian, on the final, Secret turning things around? I think the longest game was the first one, which EG won, and then Secret kind of progressively took things more easily from there, again, having some repeat picks between games 3 and 4.
Well, you know, the series was not the same series we saw at the Summit. I think that EG has Secret a little bit more figured out.
It's literally true.
What's that?
That's literally true.
Yeah, it's just different environment, different picks. Yeah, I get it. It's different. But my point is that while Secret certainly got progressively better in games 2 and 3, game 4 turned on a knife edge. And, you know, you could easily argue that a combination of a slight miscalculation, well, perhaps a major miscalculation, but in the situation it was more of a slight miscalculation on EG's part, and a major capitalization by Secret, which again is what makes them one of the best teams, or probably the best team in the world right now, is really what turned that around. And then EG has an unfortunate tendency, we saw it against London Conspiracy, now we've seen it against Secret, to when one of those big leads evaporates, when the rubber band snaps, they sort of get caught out. They underestimate just how big the comeback has been. I mean, EG had something like a 20K gold lead at that point, and then they lost one fight, and it was literally back to 5K or maybe even dead even. And at that point, Secret did an incredible job. But I think that, this is really the rivalry that Dota needs. If I can go that far out, Navi versus Alliance doesn't mean nearly what it did a long time ago. And now we've got two teams that really play their best, their respective best, two very distinct styles, two very distinct batches of heroes. And say what you will about a 3-1 final and another Secret win, but the ESL One final was absolutely incredible, and I cannot wait to see them face off again into the International.
It was pretty strong. Is it the rivalry that the community wants?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. It's North America versus Europe. China's probably feeling a little bit left out.
Kind of obviously. North America versus Europe. Kind of.
So to
Artesia is Canadian.
Well, for all intents and purposes, Secret is European because 4/5 of the players are European.
They're basically Canadian, actually.
They're basically Canadian.
You rate
Sounds like
teams
a band name.
Like by personality, and Artesia is clearly the biggest personality, so that means the team's Canadian, actually.
Is that how that works?
Yeah, which is funny because he's very brash, and Canadians are known for apologizing and saying sorry and stuff like that, so it doesn't really make good sense. We mentioned that Vici Gaming came over, Invictus Gaming came over, didn't quite make it through. It looks to me like the top of the Chinese scene is actually now behind the top of the Western scene. Would you agree with that assessment, and why has that become the case? Because it was not like that earlier in the year.
It wasn't. I'll 100% agree with that. Especially since Evil Geniuses has really tightened up their game. They've shifted their picks around a little bit. We're seeing that Sumail still has some growth to do before he's going to really, pull out a truly clutch performance on the world stage. The DAC was great, but ever since they've actually, sort of drilled into him a little bit more discipline and sort of refined their pick ban phase. I'm sorry, the draft. Forgive me.
Sure.
Dota 2 fans. I think that Secret was already ahead of the East, and now EG's ahead of the East. But let's not talk about this like the West is ahead of the East now. The simple fact is that EG and Team Secret are two teams that would be strongest in their region regardless of where they are. They're just two superhuman powerhouses. They've got the right pieces, they've got the right ideas, and they've got the right discipline to really put them ahead of everybody. So I don't think we're even dealing with an East versus West situation anymore. It's just, there's Secret, there's EG, and then the rest of the world could just get the fuck out of the way.
I do think generally that's how you do the region thing. Like the top 2 or 3 teams from a region are said to encompass the entirety of it, even though it's not really how it works. That is what generally the line is. One more thing quickly on ESL. Alliance did not look great, in my view. They did not look super fantastic. After making the X Games final, so a bit of a letdown for them. They've been kind of working to recover their old form for some time now. It's been an ongoing and still going process. Do you think this team can be a threat at the International?
Well,
a threat.
They didn't qualify.
A real
the
threat.
Alliance, they didn't qualify.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good oversight actually. That's a good one. Yeah. Do you think this is rounding back into form? Like he's getting back there? That's actually what was my original question. I tried to flip it around to like the International. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that little detail there about them. Do you think that Alliance is getting back into good form, like on a level of a VP, for example, or is it just kind of they had a good X Games run, they're still going to be stuck in the same doldrums they've been in for a while now?
I mean, the X Games was the holdover of the Left Behind, or was the contest of the Left Behinds. Plain and simple, Alliance obviously had a good run, NIP had a good run because they felt like they had something to prove, but obviously once Alliance faced up against true international competition, they crumbled. There's so much that needs to happen to this team, and I don't think this team is really, the Alliance brand, so to speak, isn't going to see another international championship until I dare say Loader retires and they've retooled with a completely different roster.
Well, they won't see this one, just so you guys know.
Not.
They are out. Too many esports around here. Moving on now, I think a good time to move on to a game we can all talk about in unison, with great unity and togetherness. The wonderful Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, with all of its fun controller gamepad mechanics. Denial are the reigning Call of Duty World Champions. That's the team, reigning champs. And every player on that championship team is now gone, We are, what, 3
They
months?
brought one back. They've got one still.
That's true. Okay, former Denial players back, replays. So you have a World Championship team, I think like 3 months now removed from the World Championship, obliterated. Kind of a weird thing there. Is this, Sam, an upgrade for the team?
I don't think so. I mean, so
You sound so sure.
They lost the MVP of their two biggest slayers, Clayster and Attach. Clayster was the MVP of the World Finals. He's considered basically the best at what he does in the game, playing like the mailbox, like long-range assault rifle position, where you're immobile and just frag people, basically. Him and Attach went to FaZe, and Denial got some of the FaZe leftovers from that move, but they actually played each other in the 5K on Sunday, and FaZe won 3-1, so that's online, doesn't really mean that much, but, it shows that maybe FaZe is a little bit of a leg up. They kind of have a more veteran roster. But, I mean, Denial still got a pretty, even though they lost their whole team, basically, they still have one of the better rosters in the Pro League, so they're probably one of the top 3 teams, maybe top 4 teams. So they didn't make out too badly from it, but it is like a pretty big disappointment. I mean, you think that winning something like a Call of Duty championship is kind of like something that can make your whole organization, right? That helps you get sponsors, that'll help you grow. Right. Denial is not doing too bad for themselves, and they're expanding the other games and things like that. But it has to be a little disappointing that this is how things turned out, especially because they were originally supposed to be keeping Clayster and Attach, and then it didn't.
Yeah, the story changed very quickly. It did. It changed very quickly. Do you think this is just an effect of like the Optic gaming landscape, where Optic is so good they kind of changed the way that the COD scene works, where even if you're the reigning champions, it doesn't really matter because you're still behind Optic, and there's no real way to get past them. You have to make changes anyway.
I don't know if it's really changing the way it works. I think it almost always worked like this. Like, even when Complexity was on the top, everyone was making changes to beat them. I don't remember how long Impact lasted after they won the World Championship. I don't think it was very, very long.
It was a couple months, but they were deteriorating rapidly.
Well, that's kind of like Denial. I mean, their recent, obviously they got first at COD Champs, then at ESWC they got second, but they were fifth through 8th at Gfinity, and then they were 5th and 6th at MLG playoffs. So they're not doing as well as they did
in the playoffs. Right. Yeah, so it's not a great
Important
result.
detail.
Yeah.
5th place sounds okay until you 8 teams were there, So
I mean, and that shows that they're regressing. When before the champs they had gotten second at the previous 2 tournaments, third at the one before that, so they were looking like they were on the way up to being the team that would really maybe consistently dethrone Optic. And then now it's just kind of like it all went away. So
it did.
Clayster and Attach had apparently discussed with Replays and JCap that they were going to do this change, and I guess they were departing amicably, but then the players that Clayster and Attach wanted to get wouldn't come join Denial, so they ended up leaving for FaZe. So that kind of like, I don't know. It's just really awkward the way things work in Call of Duty compared to other esports, I think, and a lot of these roster swaps where I guess contracts have more weight or players are contracted.
Yeah, it seems a little bit awkward. Ian, the new FaZe clan, they have been the biggest and most, I suppose, more than the biggest, the most consistent challengers to Optic Gaming. They've consistently failed in that challenge, but they have challenged them consistently for the top 2 spots for the top spot.
Yeah, they won the first Advanced Warfare
that is
event,
true.
But there aren't any players left from that roster.
And they reset the bracket against the Optic recently, not at X Games, but not too long ago. They managed to do that. So they've had some minor headway and have been there a lot, but now they changed the team as well. Do you think the new FaZe clan is better prepared for challenging Optic, or are they a drop off here?
No, I think it's a definite upgrade. And the fact that they've been so close that they're one of the teams that has come, like you said, they reset the bracket, which in this current phase of competitive advanced warfare is an accomplishment. They're obviously a hungry team. They've smelled blood in the water before, and now they've got people who are obviously on the same page of vis-a-vis wanting to win a world championship and take the top spot. They've got guys who have been there and have the experience to sort of perform when the moment matters. So I think it's a definite upgrade for FaZe, and hopefully, for the sake of competitive COD, they'll steal a couple championships from Optic.
We'll see, or you can just win them outright rather than stealing them. That'd be
well, yeah,
I would prefer that myself.
It's an idiom.
On the loadout, Ian Barker endorses theft.
I quit so hard.
And hates Peruvian Dota players. Moving on now. Tempo Storm. Great win for them. They beat Cloud9 Maelstrom in the latest Heroes of the Storm competition. Sam, break down for us the result. Tempo Storm came out on top of the new rivalry at the top of the North American scene. The rivalry, really.
It's not really a new rivalry.
Yeah,
it's
the rivalry.
For a year or so.
Yeah.
But,
it seems new because Hots is new, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Tempo Storm is, the longest running team. They were the best team for a long time until Cloud9 Maelstrom came around and kind of dethroned them for a while there. Maelstrom was getting the better of them in most of the events. But this past month, Tempo Storm's been basically dominating them ever since they added Zuna to the lineup as a substitute. And then yesterday they, I guess, signed him full time. So Zuna, was the player for Vulcan and XDG for in League of Legends, playing the LCS in the World Championship in Season 3. But so they beat Maelstrom 3-0 at the past 2 tournaments, including the World Cyber Arena qualifier, which is like the biggest tournament so far in North America. And then this Road to BlizzCon one, they played them. They won 2-0 in the upper bracket, and then it was 2-1 in the final. They actually lost the first map, and they were pretty close to losing the second one, but they kind of pulled it back after winning a late team fight, and then had like Azmodan scaling, which is kind of one of their signatures with Arthlon playing Azmodan, and they won that one and won the last game on what was supposed to be their worst map. So, I mean, they're looking very, very good right now. I mean, it just seems like they have, they've got a lot of skilled players who are able to make a lot of plays that other teams can't, and they're able to use some of the champions like Azmodan that are good right now that a lot of teams haven't really been able to work into their lineups. So, I think that's helped them quite a bit.
Talking about Azmodan, just kind of the game in general, has the HOTS meta evolved as you expected it to at this point? Like, how far are we along? Do teams still have a long way to go in your view of figuring out how the game works right now, or have they pretty much got the current meta figured out?
I think that it's going to be changing all the time. I mean, I think sometimes it's even shifting week to week in terms of what gets popular. Like, a couple weeks ago, one of the European teams picked like a triple warrior composition with all these dives with Tyrael and Anubarak, and that got popular for a little bit, but it's not as popular now. In North America, they play a little differently. So, Tyrael became like a ban just off of that, even though he wasn't that popular of a champion before then. I mean, things change a lot. Like, the recent changes to promote made that popular and made split pushing popular. It's one of the reasons why Azmodan's good, but they're changing promote in a different way, this next patch, so that's going to shift things up. They're releasing new heroes. Their goal was a new hero every 3 weeks right now, which is, pretty quick and ambitious, but I think that they're actually going to be able to make good on that promise. I think the Butcher will be coming out very soon, and then they have a couple more in the pipeline, the new support, the Monk and King Leoric.
Right.
So those are inevitably going to shift things up. I mean, most of the new heroes they've released have become meta staples pretty quickly. Like Johanna right now was picked in every game in the finals, I think. It was Murd and Johanna as the Warriors because she's got such good they both have such good control that basically it allows you to pick these damage classes that don't have as much control around them. So I mean, I think it's work in progress. It's changing and it's always going to be changing. One thing that's different in Heroes is like there's a new map that's coming out in this next patch. That's going to shift the meta up a lot. The 2 most popular maps at the during the Road to BlizzCon qualifier tournament were the 2 new ones, Sky Temple and Tomb of the Spider Queen. So just a little over a month ago, those weren't even maps that you could play. So that's inevitably changed things up completely because the strategies that are effective on those maps are completely different than other maps. Spider Queen's a smaller map. There's a lot more fighting all over the map, a lot more skirmishes. You have to be able to fight in small battles. And Sky Temple allows you to do these split push strategies you can't do on other maps, or these turtle strategies because of the way the control points work. So I think it'll always be ever evolving and ever changing. Obviously, I mean, obviously it is for League of Legends with the way they update the game, but I don't think anything is close to have settled yet.
Right, doesn't look to be. Ian, what do you see as still missing in terms of like heroic archetypes, not character-wise, but in terms of like the effects like to see in the game? Because we have Dota 2 and League that have such long and structured games now with so many heroes and champions respectively. Is there anything missing in Heroes of the Storm right now, you think, in terms of like what should be added to the playfield?
It's hard to really pinpoint one specific thing. We've got, all the archetypes vis-a-vis, damage, healing, damage absorption via tanks, things of that nature. So it's hard to say that there's a specific archetype that's missing, but the one thing that's cool to see is the way that they continue to evolve the roles. Rhaegar is a little weird in that he's a support that can also do a little bit of fighting in his own right. We've got Joanna, who is, she doesn't do a ton of damage on her own, but she has the ability to completely erase, the other team's damage in the middle of a team fight. Then, of course, we got nukers like Kael'thas and Jaina. It's just, to be frank, I don't know. I don't know where this game goes next because it feels, at least from my perspective, like there's a very complete hero pool right now. I think their greatest challenge won't be adding new archetypes, but instead making sure that one archetype doesn't take over the game, so to speak. Because, we've seen what can happen when Lily is just a little bit overpowered in solo queue. So you got to make sure that, people aren't running like triple assassin and just blood for blooding people to death or something like that.
So, one of the problems a lot of people, especially people playing like more casually, I think, have with the game is the way the support class works is centered around healing, which is different from like League of Legends and these other games where in League they actually have constantly nerfed the healing available because it just kind of centers the support around that healing ability because the output has to be high enough to survive these fights, and these fights are lasting longer. And
you really only have one champion based around healing in League. That's Soraka. She's kind of like the healing mage.
Well, Sona used to be able to heal more than she.
Yeah, I guess she still heals some. Yeah.
I think there was a couple more, but it used to be like, they've had to. That's something that they've stayed away from, I guess.
Yeah,
Heroes,
the one that defines the game is her. But yeah.
In Heroes, it's basically integral to how the game plays out. People complain like if you take a certain support who's not one of these healers at like Malfurion or Brightwing who have this high output, they'll be like, "Oh, we lost because Tyrande can't heal enough," which isn't necessarily really true depending on how you play it out. But that's kind of like the sentiment. So the question is, like, that's going to be one of the tough things I think for Blizzard is to balance those two things, especially when designing new support heroes. Right now, I think Tassadar is the only support that doesn't have a heal in some form, and people are, the way matchmaking works in quick match games, if you queue as Tassadar, it's like almost an auto loss for most people because you'll be against a support that heals and you can't stand up to that output in basically like any kind of team fight situation. So that's going to be one of the questions is how can they design support heroes without relying on just healing mechanics to make them work. So that'll be something we'll see in the future. Maybe they'll change Tassadar from being a support into being more of a specialist or something, because they've said they want to switch up the kind of archetypes, in part because they use them for that matchmaking. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but that's going to be one of the struggles they have, I think.
Do you guys think that the game is kind of ready for its big coming out party at BlizzCon? Because, League has the worlds where the game looks, very sharp. You have teams playing at such a high level. Same thing with Dota at the International. Teams play such a high level. The meta is so... it just works. You can see like the game at its most pure form in those events. Are we getting to a place where we can see the same thing from Heroes at BlizzCon?
I'd say 100%. Places like ESL, in particular the ESL Major League. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
ESL has a professional league for Heroes of the Storm that's allowed it to sort of develop its esports footprint so much faster than other games. Even, at this point in its development, I don't think League of Legends could possibly lay claim to this level of maturity. And if you watch, I watch VODs from Caldor TV, I watch them from ESL, and it's just incredible to see how refined and solid the strategies are right now and how much people are sort of leaning on the practices of successful esports teams in other esports and applying them to the game, and it's helping the game to grow at a really accelerated rate. So I think BlizzCon, hell, it could have come out probably a few months ago and it would have been considered mature.
Here's the Dorm was a BlizzCon-esque production in terms of like the actual production of the finals.
I don't know if the games themselves were quite so sharp at BlizzCon for Heroes of the Dorm though. It's kind of a pickup.
They were close games. They probably weren't as sharp, but.
But if you were to put like Team Liquid versus Team Arthas, or even Team Liquid versus love to see Team Liquid versus Tempo Storm, for example. If you put that on a main stage, it's gonna look a lot like watching a high level EU LCS game. Or even one of the games that I hesitate to say MSI because we haven't really seen a ton of international competition outside of Europe and North America, but the level of polish I think is on a similar level to, for example, the LCS.
there is competition in China. You just can't watch it quite so easily.
That's true.
It's the one little
surprise.
One minor quibble there is you can't really watch the games unless you're in China. It's a little bit difficult. I'm just impressed you managed to answer that, Ian, without running down any South American countries this time. That's well done by you. Moving on now.
You and me both.
ESPN has begun to court. Well, haven't just begun. They're in the process of courting esports now. Some self-promotion here. There's a fine feature on daily.com you might look up to this very subject. I think it's very well written, well reported, well researched. Just all around good showpiece journalism from this wonderful company that we work for. But let's talk about the subject now at large. ESPN coming into the esports realm and kind of laying their stake, their claim, making their claim. They have just some minor background here. The International was first broadcast over ESPN 3 with an ESPN 2 30-minute type of preview show. I'm not even sure what to call that thing that was on ESPN 2 for that. It was just a thing that was on TV, I guess. Then we had Heroes of the Dorm was more properly a part of ESPN. They had the final, of course, on ESPN 2, which had a raucous reaction, positive and negative, depending on who you looked to for your reaction feedback. We've seen the International now, the latest one coming to be on ESPN 3 yet again. X Games has hosted events 3 times running now. We had Counter-Strike, Call of Duty, and Dota 2 all represented there. We've seen those games on ESPN 2 and ESPN 3. That's a pretty good rundown, and the latest issue, I should say, of ESPN the magazine is an esports issue with a long-form faker profile, the most mechanically sound player in League of Legends by reputation and probably by actual skill. So ESPN getting in pretty deep here with the whole esports thing. My conversations with them that have been formal ones have been very, let's see how it goes. Basically, they covet the youth movement, the demographic that's involved in esports, which is obviously a valuable one. They see the numbers, pretty numbers. I guess my first thing will just be to go to each of you. I'll start with you, Ian, and ask for your opinion on ESPN's current relationship with esports.
Fortuitous, I guess would be my best descriptor for it. I mean,
broad, depending on who you're assigning that to.
Fair point. Well, let me break it down a little bit. Let's not beat around the bush when it comes to the esports audience. The esports audience is extremely young, extremely plugged in, and has a great deal of disposable income. And for that reason, even just having your name attached to esports right now is a profitable venture. You see, HTC phones is getting in on the game. Computing peripherals have been around forever, and so now people feel like they have to buy a $100 keyboard, even if they only compute every once in a while, or even play games every once in a while. It's something that's growing so quickly that I don't think anybody who wants to sort of diversify their revenue stream can afford to miss the boat.
Even the occasional computer needs a good keyboard now.
Even the occasional computer needs a good keyboard.
You see what I did there, like past tense, as opposed to like a computer itself. Yeah. Very good. Sam, your thoughts on esports at ESPN or ESPN at esports, or the combination of the two as it currently stands?
I actually wrote an article myself about this, a while back after Here's the Dorm. Basically
a fine one, too, at the
Yes.
Yes.
Talking about how ESPN in some ways needs esports more than esports needs ESPN. I mean, we've already found our broadcasting niche on, Twitch TV and streaming media, but ESPN needs more places where they can basically, on television, I guess my argument was television essentially, but television advertising is going downhill because people don't watch shows live anymore. They stream it on Hulu, or they download it, or they watch it on demand after recording it with whatever their Roku or whatever. But sports you still watch live. Esports you watch live. So that's something that's extremely valuable. The money going into it is insane. ESPN's paying a lot to have their own content. Their own sports content on their network, and esports is kind of like a new frontier for that. It's a place where that's not happening yet, and ESPN can kind of get in on the ground level and have something that people want to watch live that they can advertise. So that's like incredibly important to a network like ESPN, especially if it's something that they see actually will have an audience on their network. So that's why they're kind of dipping their toes in, because they want to see if this can be like a huge thing for them, which it definitely has potential to be. As in terms of like what esports gets out of it, I mean, we get promotion, and we do get access to a niche audience. Like a lot of people are like, oh, we don't need ESPN, but it's like, why not? Whatever. We get a bonus from it. It doesn't matter if people whine about it. We still have our own things. We still have our own Twitch and stuff. The only issue is when you get into things like Here's the Dorm, where it was only on ESPN2 and you couldn't watch it live on things like Twitch, which, I don't think that Blizzard wants to do something like that again. It was kind of like a stipulation for their test run there, but you'll have to wait and see how that happens. I mean, obviously, if ESPN's buying something exclusive, it means they're making, a big investment into it, so... Who knows? That's still far off in the future, and there are potential problems there. But I think in general it's a good thing.
I mean, part of the traditional sporting broadcast landscape is exclusivity. You pay billions of dollars to have a big professional sports league only have their games on your channel, or to at least get a piece of the pie. A company like the NFL, for example, has multiple broadcasters giving them billions of dollars for their games, not just one. So I think you get into a question of, do you have, some companies sectioned off and this network or that network? Do you have Riot, for example, who are big on exclusivity with their own broadcasts, their own in-house productions? Do they potentially open their ears to an ESPN deal where to watch League, you have to tune into ESPN if you're, for example, in North America? Is that a potential thing? Like, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think you'd probably see something like, like a Thursday night league or something, like Thursday night football, and it would be on ESPN, and then the rest would still be under Riot's broadcast before you see anything like that. I mean, I think that, that has potential in the far future, but I don't think that that's, a realistic thing anytime soon. And I know that, Riot themselves wouldn't really want to go into a deal like that. They probably wouldn't think that they'd need that. Obviously, it's, it would be great for them to get their game, exposed to a new audience, but, that's not really, I guess, kind of like the goal with esports. Is they're trying to keep the audience that they have engaged in a lot of ways, which they're doing.
Right, and there's a big engagement. There could be argued there's better engagement when you're working online. You have these online communities, like for example on Twitch, than there is if you just broadcast it over the cable waves. Ian, do you think there's a good benefit to a company like Riot or Blizzard or Valve putting their game on cable and having even an exclusivity deal for a certain at least event, if not the entire game? What is the benefit there?
I guess Twitch wouldn't crash. I mean, that's maybe the one thing. But no, at this point, I don't think it's a matter of. I actually agree wholeheartedly with Sam when he says that, ESPN needs esports more than esports needs ESPN. It's as I said previously, it's one of those things that's grown so big you can't afford to be left out of the conversation anymore. And with that in mind, you see both YouTube and ESPN getting into gaming and getting into esports at the same time, both kind of planting their flag in this thing that's growing so fast. And I think the reason I especially go to a return to the concept of it being a fortuitous partnership is because we see a lot of things in esports, a lot of opportunities in esports that are just waiting for the right people with the right knowledge to sort of take them and make the most out of them. And when it comes to securing broadcast rights, doing stories and things of that nature, producing content and sort of getting your name out in the esports community while the rights are cheap and while people aren't trademarking their content and putting royalty fees on it, things like that, it's a good opportunity for ESPN to get out there and say, hey, you don't watch baseball without us. Obviously, you need us to watch esports too, right, guys? Right? Huh? Look at all this cool stuff we're doing.
Right.
We're part of this.
Right. You mentioned YouTube, though. I was gonna bring up YouTube actually because this is an interesting point. We talk about exclusivity with ESPN, for example, but we might not have to go to cable to have that kind of thing come up in esports pretty soon. We have Twitch. They're going to have serious rivals in the form of YouTube gaming. MLG already has kind of a thing like this with Call of Duty. They've cornered the market. They have all the players who perform on MLG.TV exclusively. They have all the games on MLG.TV exclusively. We're going to see, it's just a matter of time, we're going to see Twitch and YouTube gaming split rights to different events and perhaps eventually, well, certainly eventually, but I don't know how far off this is, different games entirely. So is it even a matter of getting to cable to have that kind of thing? Like, isn't exclusivity just an inevitability, and we're going to see it now with the different online platforms, much less cable?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sam, you got there first, so go ahead.
Yeah, you did. Go ahead.
That's pretty much all to say. Yes.
Ian,
it is going to be an issue.
With more detail.
It's going to
happen. Well, okay. So instead of just giving a flat yes, I'll actually compare the two. If we've got two major media entities, if we can call YouTube that, jockeying for position in the esports landscape, then I think that ESPN's in trouble. if it's going to try to square off with Twitch and YouTube. And frankly, honestly, I think Twitch is in trouble if YouTube is going to start, sticking their nose in this thing. And it's for a very simple reason. The modern media consumer doesn't wait for content to come to them. They go and find it. They go and find it. They need it to be accessible, categorized, cataloged, and easily streamed to their eyeballs at 1080p. And YouTube is probably the one platform that can do that reliably. They have the server infrastructure in place. They have the search engine software. They have all of this infrastructure in place when it comes to organizing and publishing media that Twitch simply does not have. It's the reason that so many Twitch users export their stuff over to YouTube Gaming. So if I think there's, we're talking about Twitch, ESPN, Esports, I think that if we're really going to prognosticate about the future of esports broadcast, YouTube Gaming is the one you need to look out for.
You mentioned the server structure. Imagine the amount of data that YouTube holds with all of its many archives of footage. Remember, Twitch turned off automatic archiving of past broadcasts because they said it was too much information for their servers.
Yeah.
They couldn't handle all that shit. It's a direct contrast to YouTube, which has, like the biggest, I think, archive of raw data probably on the internet.
That should change, though, with the Amazon acquisition, because once they work with the Amazon techs to take advantage of their web services and their servers, in theory it should be, something that they're able to tackle. But, who knows when that will be.
Well, and you bring up something interesting. You say it's something they should be able to tackle. Suggesting that it's something that has to happen in the future. YouTube's good to go. It's been good to go. It's been the one-stop shop for on-demand internet videos for quite some time now.
I mean, in many ways, that's like one of the things I've struggled, I guess, with Twitch for a while. I feel like they've adding some random new cool features sometimes, but they're not addressing a lot of like basic issues. I think that would be great for them to. They still have a lot of little problems that they haven't improved on, and having a competitor like YouTube will probably make them increase that development cycle a little bit and make them a little more aware of what people might actually want or need in terms of broadcasting. So I think that's a good thing.
Azubu, MLG.TV, they don't really move the needle too much for Twitch, but YouTube coming in with that Google money. I mean, forget the Google money, the YouTube money alone, with Google behind them, that kind of changes the playing field. We've already seen part of Twitch's strategy. Of course, they have we're a community here. You can't just spawn a new Twitch, a new community on YouTube. You can't do that.
YouTube already has a huge gaming community from the videos that are on the site. It's this whole other giant beast. Maybe it's not in esports as much, but it's still there a little bit. So.
Right. Yeah, the YouTube gaming community dwarfs arguably the esports community on Twitch.
Yeah.
And something else that I'll bring up actually is as an organization that's trying to promote our content. We're obviously have a sort of hand in the cookie jar here. YouTube Gaming, just from the initial screenshots, does so much better of allowing entities to sort of publicize themselves. Twitch is such an organic thing. Like, you gain an audience by slowly but surely plugging away over years. YouTube has promotional opportunities. They have these full-on gaming profiles. There's so many tools at their disposal here. This isn't, MLG TV challenging Twitch, as we've described here. It's fucking YouTube, man. This is no joke.
Twitch has a front page, Ian.
How could I forget? Well,
which no one will go. Why would you go to the front page to begin with?
As I thought.
Wasn't there going to be a YouTube gaming front page too? Like, isn't that going to be separate? Isn't that what that?
Probably.
So.
Yeah, but honestly, who bookmarks the Twitch front page? Like, you bookmark your channel page, right? You bookmark following, right? Is that just like? Hopefully, that's everyone. You're all far enough
sometimes
along.
The easiest way to find whatever tournament's going on is to go to the front page and see whatever game has the most viewers, right?
That's true.
I think that's the problem with Twitch right now is like that's your only method of content discovery is to be like, okay, what's getting a lot of views right now? And last night, like 2,500 people were watching some kid dance to techno music and swear his brains out while under the influence of energy drinks. It's like, I don't know. But then you go to YouTube and you get like, I'm probably going to sound like a broken record here, but you go to YouTube and you get, you're watching this channel, you'll probably also like this channel plus this video. The time on site is just so much greater.
Yeah, well, now we know that Ian watches children dance on the internet under the influence. More Ian facts for you on the loadout.
To be fair, our executive producer is the one that linked it to me, so he's the one you should
well, that's shifting the blame to him of all people. That's very well done. Well done, Ian. Bold move by you.
Thank you.
That's a good, solid esports discussion for a Tuesday, I believe. I think we've covered some good ground here. We've talked about the COD champions fucking themselves after winning the COD championship. We talked about Twitch getting that YouTube rivalry coming in. We talked about Wild Turtle being terrible. That's a good, solid day at the office. Except for one more thing. We'll close on this. Sam, the River King, Tam Kench, whatever his name is.
I can't wait to see this weird frog catfish with a giant tongue, running around the Summoner's Rift.
Yeah, if I had a nickel.
He's classy. He's got a top hat.
He does, yeah. So, okay, I guess he's a kind of a. Is he a support? I mean, it's hard to see.
So they call him a solo lane / support. I think that he's probably going to be a support because, he can work in the solo lane. He's going to be an incredible tank, right? He has this E ability that gives him all sorts of tank power. He can turn basically damage he's taken into a shield in a fight, and then he heals some of the damage he's taken back after he exits a fight. And he can exit the fight on a whim, basically, by devouring his opponent. So in a solo lane, that works, but I don't know if he'll have the damage tools to really be like a threat if he's played in the top lane. So that'll be the question, because his ultimate gives him damage scaling based off his health. So he's going to have a ton of health, and he's going to have some damage based off that, but he doesn't really have that many tools to, deal damage. He just has these Devour tools in his ultimate, which are basically more support-type abilities. Yeah,
he's no Irelia. He does have that ultimate, though. It just looks to me like a really good bottom lane tool. Like, suddenly, your entire bottom lane can just go somewhere else, like a TP,
I mean, there's going to be so many creative things that, players will come up with and ways to use it. It's probably going to take a while. It's kind of it's similar to Bard in some ways. They're added a lot of heroes recently that have these interesting interactions with both your teammates and the opponent. Like the Callista ultimate, where you suck up your teammate and then you can throw them somewhere.
Right.
And then they had, Bard obviously with the Mystical Journey, where you can basically take your team anywhere through any wall. And then this, so you can swallow your teammates to protect them, basically give themselves another Zhonya's in a team fight. You can swallow an enemy champion, so if they're doing some channeled ult, or they're about to do something big, you can swallow them. You can swallow them and bring them back behind your tower, or you can go engage in the 2v2 bottom lane and then swallow them for a couple seconds to give yourself a 2-on-1 for a little. And then the ultimate, which basically is kind of like a TF ultimate that lets you bring a teammate with you.
Right.
They said it has huge range. I don't know if it's global range. I don't think it's global, but they showed a video of someone taking it from basically the top tribush to the mid lane, so that's like half the map.
Yeah, it's not bad.
So there's going to be some crazy plays that people execute with that. Like, you can basically bring anyone into a gank from anywhere.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that bottom lane TP, basically, I thought I see happening with our new River King support friend. I did think
you
he's
can back and get in the lane instantly, who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting to see how this shakes out. We'll see. Hopefully not quite as just stupid as Echo was on his release, but we'll find out, I guess. I do think River King is going to be more of a gradual addition, like Bard was to the LCS.
And a lot of it depends on just the numbers. It's really hard to predict. Like, if the numbers are high enough, then he's just going to be good no matter what. Anyway,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, so that is often the case with these champions. The numbers, the math makes a big difference. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you like the channel, follow the channel rather, right there. Go ahead, do it. This part of the show, find its past broadcast. Look us up on YouTube, daily.esports. Look us up on Facebook and Twitter at .esports. And then, follow us there. It's a great thing to do, I think. Be sure to join us on Thursday for another full slate of content. We'll have Ian Barker joining us again there before we have Richard Lewis on the show. And then our full in-house League of Legends crew breaking down in detail the upcoming weekend of LCS action and, of course, the River King. I'm sure that our in-studio analysts will have a lot to say about the catfished frog, Southerner, New Orleans top hat wearer character, as I so eloquently put it. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.